Barbara. Welcome everybody to our last session for today. Myself and Sarun are going to show a little bit about the tool that we put up for mapping that we worked with the Earth Data Analysis people on a project called RGIS. And let's see if I can get my little PowerPoint to go through. So I'm going to do kind of we're going to do a two-person presentation here, and I'm going to do a little bit of what is ARGIS and our history with it. And then because I know whenever you're pulling data, you actually need to have this sort of idea of how the data is formulated, and you have to have some data basics, even if what you're doing is GIS sort of stuff with it. And then I'm going to turn it over to Sarun, and he's going to be the brave soul to do a live demo over Teams on the site and how to work with the data, as well as talk about some of the capabilities that you might be able to do using the data that we're making available through our tool. So RGIS stands for Resource Geographic Information Systems, and really it's a website and a place that the Earth Data Analysis Center puts up and works together. However, BBER and Earth EDACT really have been collaborating on ARGIS for more than 30 years. And in fact, when I look at our financial software at UNM, the very first financial index that we have is the one we have for doing ARGIS with EDACT. So it's been a very long-term collaboration. And it turns out when you look at data, when you look at census data or you look at the unemployment rate, it's not just what is the unemployment rate, it's what is the unemployment rate in the state of New Mexico or in Bernalillo County or in the city of Santa Fe. So geography has a very important key role in giving data context. And so that's one of the things. But the collaboration that we've been working with EDAC for so long really came about to talk about, you know, BBER's providing all this data, and it really is tied to all of these geography types, and we're doing a lot of the same sort of work side by side. So how can we avoid duplicating, you know, collecting maps and collecting data, and kind of streamline that to do one thing? And the other thing is, both at the mission statement for BBER and the mission statement for EDACT, was to be able to provide a service to state agencies, to local governments, to businesses, and to the public in general. And so it really is this collaboration that works on all levels for both of our departments. So right now in ARGIS, and what we ended up doing is kind of breaking out, when we pull in some shape files from ARGIS and we pull shape files from the Census Bureau, and Sarun can talk a little bit more about that. But our idea with ARGIS is to be able to build shape files on the fly with social economic data. And currently the social economic data that we've loaded into our version of ARGIS is all the data that you find in the data profile tables from the Census Bureau, the DPO 2, 3, 4, and 5. Those are the social characteristics tables, the economic table, the housing, and the housing demographic tables. We've also brought in the decennial census summary file. We did that knowing that we had 2020 census coming out, and we wanted to be able to have both the 2010 and the 2020 data in there. We've also brought in redistricting, and we did that also for 2010 and 2020, so people can compare that. We've had population estimate programs, so between decennial censuses, the population estimate program estimates the population change, and the small area income and poverty estimates. Then we have some other data sets that aren't really Census Bureau related, but they are social economic data that BBER tracks, and that would be gross receipts data in New Mexico, which we have both the RP80 quarterly and the monthly reports in there. Employment data, specifically quarterly census of employment wage data from Bureau of Labor Statistics. We also bring in airport statistics. Mostly it's the Albuquerque Sunport, but I'm able sometimes to pull in Farmington, although their numbers have fallen. And Santa Fe Airport used to report, but they're not reporting now. So I have some historic data on them, but nothing current. And then finally, during the pandemic, we had the PPP loans that came in. And I'll note that that's the only data set right now that we have in there by zip codes, but we actually do have zip code data. So kind of those are the current data sets that we have available in our Socioeconomic RGIS tool. So let's talk a little bit about, and I started to hit on it, we had a geography in there with zip codes, and there are cities and there are towns and there are census blocks and census tracts. But data is also got constraints by time, because it's just not the unemployment rate for the city of Albuquerque. It's the unemployment rate for the city of Albuquerque in November 2020 or 2021. And so there's a time component to data. And then also we collect from various different sources. So not just the Census Bureau, but state of New Mexico data sets and other places that provide data. And in some cases, we haven't put in there building permits, but we do actually collect building permits from those entities in New Mexico that issue building permits. And that's not necessarily, oftentimes that's local cities or counties that do that. So those are some of the things that you have to be aware of when you're looking at this data. And then just to step into time issues. So data can be done annually, monthly, quarterly, biannual, every other year, every 3 to 5, every 10 years, or decennial data. And so when you're pulling data, you may be looking for population estimates. You're only going to get decennial population estimates every 10 years. But knowing that the population estimate program releases population estimates, and they do it as a point in time, they'll do it July 1st, 2021 or 2022. So there actually is a really, it's not the whole quarter, it's not an average annual. So it's important to be aware of the data and what it represents time-wise, and then also to understand that when data is collected, it's then processed, and there's a period of time it takes to be released. So as we've seen oftentimes today that, a lot of the 2020 data products that will be coming out in 2022 and 2023, even though the data really refers to April 1st, 2020. And so it's important to realize that there's this sort of timeliness of when the data actually becomes available. So when you're pulling data in our tool, sometimes the frustration, maybe you think the data should be there for 2020 and it hasn't been released yet for that product. So it's just to be aware of that as you're working with data. And obviously, if you're pulling American Community Survey data, it comes in flavors of 1-year estimates and 5-year estimates. And if you're looking at just the 1-year estimates, you're only going to get 11 counties in New Mexico, because only 11 counties meet the population threshold of 65,000 or more. I have 10 counties. I think I think it fell in 2020. It was 11 counties and now it's down to 10 counties on my slide, and there's only really 4 cities. So if you pull data and you're like, I don't see all the geographies I need, remember that the data series may not be available for all the geographies you expect, and you may need to step up to, in this case, 5-year estimates for American Community Survey, which goes all the way down to the block group. Although I heard the Census Bureau isn't going to publish the ACS down to the block group anymore, so that may be falling off. And I have this slide in here just to talk a little bit about the fact that most of the data we have in the tool, in the RGIS tool, is really American Community Survey data, because that's where we get most of our different tabulations. The ACS asks about 59 questions, and the decennial census that came out, you only had to answer 10. So, there's limited data for that 100% count tabulations, whereas when we step into American Community Survey, you'll see so much more data available. All right, so now I've kind of gone through my little spiel, and I'm going to turn this over to Sarun to actually go out and show the tool and how it works. And then to discuss, he has a whole thing about how he wants to talk about the API on it too. So if you're really into leveraging APIs, he's got some good information.
Right,
and just real quick, yeah, before you go, Reed Liming is asking me, is ACS still doing 1 year, 3 year, and 5 year? No, they're only doing 1 year and 5 year. The 3-year product was dropped about 5 years ago. All right, Sarun.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right, awesome. So hey everyone, I'm Sarun. I do the programming for BBER, and then I will come to the RGIS tool, and that's actually towards the end of my section. But I wanted to start from where's the data normally, and what's the database, and so just give the journey of a data that comes from a data set up until the website and how it's displayed in the RGIS data set. So I wanted to show you a window to our database. So now our database is somewhere in Oregon in Amazon servers, but this is our database. So, and here we have tables, and we have a lot more. And then, so let me just, I don't know if you're familiar with SQL, but SQL is the language that you use to talk to the database. So I'll demonstrate a little bit of SQL, and if you're familiar with it, great. If not, you'll still not very difficult. So here you can see all the tables, and you can see that you can view all rows of a table. So this is what we say of data, that rows and columns nicely, neatly organized with all the things. But if you wanted to get some selective data out of the database, where is that? There it is. So I've pre-typed some of the queries so I don't embarrass myself by typing in typos. So these are the 3 parts to a SQL statement. You select star means everything here from the air stats. Just give you the name of the table. And when you run it, what happened here? This is what I did not want to do. There it is. I don't know what happened. And then we get everything. So this is really not different from anything over. But we can build up on this little foundation of this little sentence and say, you know, I don't need everything. I need to tag along something else on it. So where area is this? And here we can probably, you have to know what this really means, but we have a documentation page for that. But when you do that, you only get the filters, and this filter is applied, and instead of getting everything, you're only getting Santa Fe Airport. And you can add another filter on top of that and say, all right, instead of that, I also only give me 2019 data. And then you do that, and you only get Santa Fe for 2019. So this is how you would filter through the rows. But we can also filter what columns you need. We're keeping that the same and just adding these on between the select and the from. We were saying only give me the airport name, the period year, and the period and the passengers. And when you run that, so we get the data as formatted in a different way. So this is also something similar to what the API works with. Like, I don't know if you've looked into some of the structures of an API, which is basically a website for all intents and purposes. I'll do the same thing. I'm going to our BBER API, and here I'm saying, give me everything from table air stats. And that looks suspiciously similar to select star from air stats, and that's what we're getting. And just like in the SQL, we can also tag along filters here. So you have to separate the filters by the ampersand because it has to know when the equal ends and when that starts. So when you do that, you get 2019 data for all of them. When you tag along another query, another filter, then you get, we'll come back to the metadata afterwards, but here you're getting 2019 data only for the Santa Fe. So this is, very similar to the SQL statement, and that's the only language that the database can understand. So we have to somehow translate these queries that we're doing here to the SQL so that you can get data from there. So here, like how we had column filters before, here we can also have column filters and give it the name variables. And then we are only asking for airport name and passengers. And here we have airport name and passengers. But notice we have these 6 fields that always come up. That's what state it belongs to, what type of area it is, what area it is. And then these are, like we like to call it, the fabric of space and time. Like everything happens in some place at some time, right? So that's the point Susan was talking to before. So we need filters at this point so we can see the similarities between how you would pass in values as API parameters versus how you would pass in values as SQL. So I came up with a picture. I actually went pretty old school and hand wrote all the queries. So basically you can see this is like a fill in the blanks, and all these little parameters you put goes in here, it goes in here, it goes in here. And then it becomes a full-fledged SQL query, which will give you data in which you use to do something else on your application. All right, so these queries, these numbers, like how would you know to put 07 this as the things, and how would you know what area type is which? And we have an API documentation page for that we're actively working on. So let me give you a demonstration of that. So here it says you what's the endpoint is. You can see what the parameters, different parameters are. It gives you sample values of the parameters, but it quite does not give you what all the parameters you can put. And that this is under construction. So the next phase would be to add on a table. What are the tables available? What are the area types available? And what table has what area type? Because not all tables have not area types associated with them. So this is technically what happens. This right here. That you're just tagging or filling in the blanks. But then since this is a public facing API, anybody can go to our website. And if you put malicious code in these little sections, and then you can actually bring down somebody else's server. And that's called SQL injection at that point. So there's a lot of security measures and other libraries that there's steps between these two processes, but at a high level, that's practically what happens. So
now you're going to show the tool, huh?
Yeah. So I was also going to talk about why are we doing it this way? Like the American Fact Finder was good. You know, you go to the tool and then you click and then you get some Excel spreadsheets. But then here you're getting these things like almost you can't even see what it really does. You have to scroll down. You can't see properly. And this is most of the API format. And why do it this way, right? I've had a conversation. But it's because once you have it in this format, and I have sample code for you to use, and I also have a public GitHub repository that you can go and get a little bit of, get started. But you can put this inside a for loop on a computer, or have you don't have to be there. We have our little box in this office that wakes up every morning, calls the Census Bureau API, updates some of our on a cron job or a scheduled task. So that would be very difficult to do if you had like a fact finder kind of a thing where you download an Excel and you have to have somebody open that Excel. So let me come to the metadata, and then I'll go to the RGIS tool. So that's data. So this is the format that all of our API gives it. So you have a metadata column. You have 2 subcategories for columns and table, and then you have a list of data. This is practically saying it's like one row of a table. But in the columns, so these are all the columns that are in the table. And then you can see air stats and its name of the measurement, and you get things like, you have detailed description. I mean, in these tables, it's self-explanatory to a point, but sometimes we have this long column names that we have to make short because we have a technical limit on how long your column name can be in database. But then we can use this, and this can be as long as it has to. So there is no limitation on this. Let's see. And then so all of our table comes with metadata, because once Jeff told me data without metadata is fake data. So you know what? We're going to give people metadata even if they don't ask for it. So there you go. You have it. So you get all the data you do has all the table names, where it comes from, how the lagging the Suzan, you talked about the series, and then how much it lags. It lags by a month, and then source where you can do this, and then so some more metadata about the table, and similarly to the column as well. So let me show you where we have used this database. Like RGIS is like the it's a very not very complicated, but it uses data from all different sources. We use mapping, GIS, but it's wanted to show you some of this not like all the other dashboards that we've built, like this the economic indicators for COVID. Let's put that full page, and all of these are being drawn, and all of these charts in the backend are using that API. And then when you go to download for any of our charts, this is the case. You can click on the API and see the link that it's building. I mean, you can directly download the CSV or JSON data too if you wanted to do it that way. But if you wanted to use this for your own application and see what it's building, there it is. It's pulling in from the COVID-19 table, and the state 500 means the United States, and which we know this because we built it, but you would have to refer to the documentation if you didn't know this, but we have it. So, and then that's it. So for almost all of our charts, and you go there, do there, see what is coming from, and it's giving a range of 18 to 21. See what else? And then we have another tool. So this is similar to the RGIS, but RGIS has all the mapping thing too, and I'm going to come to that. But here you can select the thing, all the filters, pull down the knobs and say load data, and then you're going to get the data. So it's basically like it's practically similar to this, but instead of you having access to our database and the username and the password, this is open to the world. And then you can change. Let's see if we're gonna. Well, that's. I don't know why that's wrong.
And I'm just going to note here, he's on our test site right now, which is you can click through to get to this table, but it's not user friendly yet. We're still working on it.
Yeah. So here you can go. So this is what I'm trying to say here. You can dial these knobs and download the API, and then this will reflect it. This will reflect whatever you've changed just now. So. And then you can download just this plain CSV, or you can download it as JSON before, and say click on that, load, and you can see the data here. And we have so this is we've been putting the data as is without doing any calculations on them. I'm going to give you an example of that. You can bring the data, bring multiple of those API calls, and then actually make something, and that's a different data form in and of itself. So this is a location quotient. If you know what that means, it's it's fairly involved, but it needs data from 3 different data sources, and it's plotting growth rate on one and the normalized location quotient on one. But the important thing is here you need 3 different data points, and then you can build this chart, but you have to do calculations after the data is built, and you can shift through different charts here. And
well,
so,
let's
and
stop at total wages and just do your mouse over so they can see that total wages by different industries. So this gives you the location quotient for wages in New Mexico, right, versus the US.
Yes, with respect to the US total wages.
Yeah.
So I put together something yesterday just for a demo, but it's buggy right now, but I'm going to be live. And then I created the population pyramid for Harding County that cycles through every year. So it goes to just animates, it's just calling the API again and again. I don't know why it does that. It blinks, but still, once you have it in an API, then you can have program taking control of it instead of somebody clicking through it, and you can do things like these. And I'm sure I'm going to work on making it smoother, but you can have a population pyramid that grows and shrinks as years go by. That'll tell you something, how the population is aging. So it cycles back to 2011 and it goes up to 20. So that's one. And then we have
and Harding County is dramatic, and I'm going to point out to you, Sarun, you need to capitalize Harding and County.
Yeah, no, look at the axis. It's 45 people, not 45% or this and that. It's 45 people. I mean, look at that axis. I mean, it's so crazy. When I thought I even made a mistake when I drew this, but apparently I was not wrong. We also have a public repository on GitHub. So we call it a sample API, and we have a UNM BBER. That's our GitHub page, and we have a little Python script that will download our data, and then you're feel free to fork it, put issues on it if you want. And then let me show you what that code does. So this up here it's building our query. Here it's saying, oh, these are whatever you pass it, it goes along. So it's just a dynamic query that works. And then when you run this, so we get what is it that we get? I forgot. Gross receipts for agriculture in 2020 for the entire state of New Mexico. So it just pulled that data, right? And then the advantage of using API is just by changing this one line of code, and I've already pre-done this. Instead of industry being agriculture, I want it to be construction. And if I save it and run it, it pulls the separate data, and then you get the construction on a private industry. So this is, and you could have easily just put that thing on a for loop, or put that thing on a cron job, or have this script running every 5 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. And then you can have, once your data source is in an API format, a lot more things start to make sense that would have otherwise been very difficult to do, like downloading through Excel. So that's that. So API is normally meant to be used by programs, like for instance this. And then I also had the Census Bureau API, just for the sake of comparison. Now that we know what the different parts, it's too much. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, you can probably, I don't know if you can see, this is too small, but you can see that they have an endpoint, and they have get equals, and they have the list of variables that you use, and separated by the and you can see that they're using location. I mean, they have a interface before this, that's the data.census.gov. But then that's the same thing. It's not meant to be read by people. The APIs are normally meant to be read by computers and scripts and charts directly. So that's why it's when you look at it, it seems like it's going backwards. That's what I first thought. This used to be available in such a nice Excel format, so now they're giving this instead of Excel. But then you realize who the audience is. We're not the audience. All right, so coming back to Suzan's RGIS tool, I think I'm ready for the RGIS. All right, so on our website, we have the RGIS link, and then I'm just going to view in full page. It's bigger that way. So this, you can see the similarities between this and the data filters that we had for just the tables. And then it's the same data set that we have, but here, instead of just giving you the data in a tabular format, we have it merged with the API. So when you go to counties, and then you can actually hover on, you can see the values that are changing. Then you can actually click on one of the values, and it will color the map based on the biggest value to smallest value on this. So I mean, Bernalillo County being the Bernalillo County, it's going to be bigger in every way, but so that's that. And we recently added all the redistricting tables too. So clear color. Well, it's only one for the entire state, and you can go through counties, click load data. Why does it do that? To clear the color. And then you can, then this is this last census data. And we have more geographies. You can go down to census tracts, and then have that. And also this is also on an API format. So you can click on the API, and you can see this data will give you data with shapes, and you can just get the data by itself. So we have different endpoints for that too. You can go down to block groups. This might take a while. We have the block groups, but this blocks, they're just too detailed for our servers to run. And I don't know how Census Bureau does it. I was really talking to Suzan yesterday about how he's working on that, looking through block data for the entire country and just zooming around like it's nothing. And I'm there thinking, oh my God, Census Bureau people must.
So the important thing you have to show here is on the download button. once you get the data that you're looking for, if it's redistricting or one of the other data sets, is it will actually download the shape files for if you use ArcGIS.
Yeah, I'm coming to that. So here you can see whatever you choose your data set, you choose your geography, you choose your time, you choose what, if you have different time periods, and then you load, and then you can download in API format. That's, good for scripts. But normally people working in GIS have their own set of softwares that they use. This is not going to work right now. That would be hilarious. All right, Susan, that's the problem with live demo. I don't know why it's not working. It used to.
So Bianca, the answer is that when you select for a geography, you select county. When you download the file, it's for all counties. So the downloaded file will have the data for all counties and also the shapefile.
Yeah,
the visualization there is really just to help if you're working with your ArcGIS files. It's really to help you see what the data are and how they look. And then the important thing is they're identifying if you're going to use the API link or you're going to use the download to download the geography into ArcGIS to use it someplace else. And also you can do the CSV file. So when you do the download, it's all the data, not just the one geography that you have selected.
Well, it's for some reason I don't know why this is not working. It's because remember we just changed how the metadata would not, because it was exposing a lot more than we normally wanted to. So I think I changed that only half an hour ago. So we did not have time to test through that. But normally you would download a shape file with 5 or 6 files on that, SHP, SHPX, and all these. And then you would open QGIS and ArcGIS, and it would work with that, and you would be able to download and recreate this basically, but also do a lot more after that. You have an entire world on there. But for downloading, let's see. So here, if you download, say for a county's example, and then we load and we get all that, we download this CSV data. Now this works, at least.
Hooray!
All right, fine. Well, at least this works. So we have every time you download, you get 3 files in CSV at least, and in JSON it's a nested file structure, so it doesn't need to be that. But for CSV, you get the data itself, and I mean you can look at that you probably would not know exactly what these means without metadata, and that's why we have metadata attached with all of our data calls. And then here you can get metadata for columns. It says what each of the columns mean. Here, and then if you just wanted to know like the source of the table, and that's the table metadata, then here we have the purpose, the source, whatever we saw before, and that's just on a CSV basis. Okay. All right, Susan, is there anything else that you want me to do? Well, it would be nice if I could download the thing, and I look at that. I even have my QGIS open to actually to bring it in, and then the show, and then this and that, but then that did not work. It's great.
So I don't think I had anything else I wanted you to show, except that it would be fun if you would do in the pull down, go ahead and do the gross receipts, right? And let's do I think cities and gross receipts, or do we want counties? Do gross receipts counties?
And for some reason, the gross receipt, this area is not working.
Well, it is. Because remember, gross receipts tax
there
districts.
it is. Oh, tax districts are working. Okay. Maybe for 2021 they weren't working.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to show that the other thing is that when Sarun's loading right now, and it might take him a while to load, is that you can pull it by industry and by ownership type. So one of the difficult things we've had developing these tools is different data sets are formatted differently. And so for gross receipts, because it's also broken out by industry, you can select different industries. And we do 2-digit industry on this, although I think the data is down to 6-digit, but it causes problems. But this is, I don't know, I've used the RP80s. If you've had a chance to pull RP80 data down, and their Excel spreadsheets are very difficult to use, this tool might actually help you go a lot faster when looking at that data set. It's really kind of the ARGIS is the idea of mirroring or bringing in our data from different things and then being able to create that shapefile for people. And then I'd like to note that Todd Quinn in the chat wanted to everybody know that UNM University Libraries has 2 GIS Lite tool policy map and Social Explorer for US for the less technical people. I know that this is kind of probably more technical, although we knew that this tool is really aimed at people who use GIS software. Yeah. We went really fast. I thought you'd take a little bit more time.
Yeah, I mean, going from SQL to API to all that, I thought I would take more time too, but then, you know, I talk really fast. Probably not good for the audience, but I hope people understood, because, you know, normally when you look at the API, and this is what happened to me when I first started working on this, it seems counterintuitive. You're doing this something, it looks like you're doing something backwards. You're going back, you're not providing people with Excel data, when almost everybody does their analysis in Excel to a way, and then you were giving it in a way that the people wanted, and then doing this completely backwards looking thing. And then you slowly start working on it every day, and then you know what, I probably would have to wake up every day at 6 o'clock to do this, but now because of the cron job and scheduled task, it does it for me. If I had to download all these specific data sets by hand and click through the Excel files, but now I can just put it inside a for loop, and then that for loop will run, and then it will just download whatever many it has to. So, you know, then you start appreciating the API endpoints more, initially starting to hate it, that is. And also you seem like, and also, yeah, then also the data is normally in a database, in a row and a table format. And then when it comes to an API, it's mostly in a JSON format. And then what gives, right? So that's also something I wanted to talk about is, it's at the end of the day, it is translating every little parameters we put, every little values you put here, it is being translated one way or another way to the database. Like, where's my picture? Where's my hand-drawn picture? Like you've already seen it. So that's, and then once you take it to SQL, and then that's fine. That's SQL is the language of the database, and you can bring in data. Like, say for instance, this is a lot more involved SQL than this, because here you not just have to select star from something, but you also have to look at another table that has all the coordinates and say, all right, if this table matches on this other table, then all right, combine those two data sets from two different tables, because one table has geography, the other table has data. So you merge those, and then you send the data. So you can, between you sending data as parameters and how the middleman or the middle code interprets it, you can do a lot more calculations on it and then make it very powerful. You can do percent changes, and you can do a lot more combining with different tables. Most of our tables now we're just showing data as they are. But and now we're starting to do some value added starting with the location quotient, and we can do a lot more things like that. And you can do a lot more things like that too, yeah.
Let's do navigation from BBER's homepage down to ARGIS, but also to the gross receipts data. Yeah.
So we have data, then we have ARGIS here. And then this website is still, you know, pulling in the other website, and if you click on the view full page, you just have more real estate to work with at that point. and we get back to the same place, even though it's a different website. And this is, and in 2022, in a month, we plan to make this our main website, and it still says under construction, but and hopefully when you come to our website, you're going to see some changes and not a lot of errors. I still can't believe this did not work.
It's the rule of showing something live. You always have something that doesn't quite go the way you expect it. So I'm going to unshow yours because I think unless people have questions, we did go a little bit faster than we expected. So if you guys have questions, now's the time to ask them. And especially if you have questions where to find data or what tools we have available or something. What I've got there is our contact information, and importantly, you probably need Sarun's email. If you want to leverage our API or you have any difficulties, I highly recommend you send him an email. Or if you're trying to use the Census Bureau's API, Sarun is walked through it and has a good idea where you need to go to work on it.
Or yeah, you can come to this page, and we just did the navigation. Just click, even though if just click on the data source, and we are planning to add a lot more data source. Like say for instance the PPP loans since the COVID hit, and then load, and you can see all the individual zip code data, and you can hover on them and see. But then also you can just see the API call, and then just copy this and you start using it on your own. And right now we've stabilized our output format, so you can depend on the data being data, and then working on this in metadata and columns and tables. So we have in a way locked our output. So even we're using this internally, like we're consuming our own product in a way. Like here we use our own API to build this. And now we've locked, we're pretty happy with the way this turns out. We have data and metadata, and it's very versatile. So that works.
So Sarun, what are your recommendations to learning SQL?
Install any form of SQL on your computer and start writing data in and out of a database. So this acronym CRUD is for create, read, update, and delete. So these are one of the most 4 things you do with the database. You create some table, you read data on a table, you update whatever data already existed, and you delete something. So right, so if you can read data in and out of a database, then if CRUD SQL should give you how to create, use, update, delete, and then, or you can send me an email. I can give you.
So Todd says that if you with the public library here in Albuquerque, you can also access the LinkedIn Learning, which was formerly called lynda.com. And I used them for Python when I first started learning Python, and I think that LinkedIn Learning is wonderful stuff.
I actually have it bookmarked on my thing right here. Look at that. It even has my library card and the pin attached, and then you can look at this is really amazing, and you can actually just learn a lot of SQL and Python and almost everything. I practically graduated my undergrad learning this course. Look at 3 hours of pure training. That's 12 hours of SQL. So that's a lot of courses. That's going up to a semester.
I, of course, am like other people earlier commented, because I asked how many people, there were some people who had done some SQL, and somebody said just enough to be dangerous. That would be me.
Yeah. Anytime you're typing drop on your SQL terminal, be very careful whatever you type after that, because it means to delete, and it will not tell you, are you sure you want to delete? It will just delete it. That's very dangerous.
Cool. So let's see. Let me see if I've got my slide show. Tomorrow morning is the next class. Let me file open. So tomorrow morning, the next
privacy.
yeah, it's differential privacy. Michael House. So 10:30, and so if you're interested in how differential privacy has impacted the 2020 census data, that'll be a very important class for the next one. Thank you all for coming this afternoon. And Barb, if you'll stop the recording.
Tuesday. Right now it's about a 50% chance, so it's not a slam dunk.